So I'm pleased to announce that today's talk is the Dr. Alexandre Kimenyl Memorial Lecture. And like our speakers today, it is impossible for me to do justice to Kimenyl's many accomplishments in a brief introduction. After earning a bachelor's degree from the National University of Rwanda, he came to UCLA as a Fulbright Fellow in 1971. When he finished his PhD in linguistics, he was offered an appointment at MIT. Now, if you know linguistics, you know that MIT is the home to Noam Chomsky. Dr. Kimenyl declined that offer to accept a position at Sacramento State. Over the course of an illustrious scholarly career, Dr. Kimenyl published 6 books in 59 chapters or articles. He was a visiting lecturer at Stanford, Berkeley, Yale, Harvard, and MIT. In 2004, the San Francisco Chronicle named Kimenyl the most prominent Rwandan residing in the United States. At Sacramento State University, he won the Exceptional Professional Merit Award, the Outstanding Scholarly Achievement Award, the John C. Livingston Distinguished Faculty Lecture Award, and in 2010, an award for outstanding achievement and contributions to the university and the world. Kimenyl was, in short, a scholarly giant who could have made his professional home at any university in the world. It is a testament to our sister campus, Sacramento State, and to the CSU that he chose us as his home. Dr. Kimenyl lost most of his immediate family, including his parents and some siblings, in the 1994 genocide of the Tutsi. Dr. Kimenyl died in 2010 in Sacramento. Today's lecture not only honors his memory, but serves as a reminder that scholarship is an ethical calling. I'm pleased now to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker today is Ambassador Mathilde Mukantabana, who is joining us from Washington, D.C. Ambassador Mukantabana was married to Alexandre Kimenyl. Ambassador Mukantabana serves as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Rwanda to the United States, and as non-resident ambassador to Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. Prior to her diplomatic career, Ambassador Mukantabana was professor of history at Sacramento State University and lecturer of social work at the National University of Rwanda. Ambassador Mukantabana has won numerous international and national awards, various keys to cities, and honorary degrees. But I am most pleased to see that her official biography on the Rwandan Embassy's website notes that she once won the Crystal Apple Award for Best Instructor at Kasumnes River College in Sacramento. Our second speaker today is Geraldine Umutesi, who is joining us from Rwanda, where it is very early in the morning, just after 1 a.m. Umutesi is the Deputy Director General in charge of institutional development at the Imbuto Foundation. She has 20 years of experience in strategic and project management in the areas of family promotion, health, education, and youth empowerment. She is an active member of Imbuto, the Organization of Genocide Survivors in Rwanda. Additionally, she is among the pioneers of the so-called family approach, initiated by genocide survivors to restore a sense of belonging among young survivors and to encourage them to become resilient and contribute to the national development of Rwanda and to future genocide prevention. So those were very long introductions, and I'm honored now to step aside and to turn our virtual podium over to Ambassador Mukantabana. Thank you, Mathilde.
Thank you so much, Prof. Stephen. Thank you for your kind introductions and especially for acknowledging Professor Alexandre Kimenyl. It's always an honor for me to speak, especially at an event that is honoring him. As you say, he was one of the pioneers in the fight against the genocide. So for me, he's shown us the way to go as we continue in our journey. So thank you so much. And I thank you also, Christine and Susan, for your phenomenal job as a co-president for the Alliance of the Study of the Holocaust and Genocide at the Sonoma State University. Greetings and thanks to all the board members present for your friendship and sustained partnership. I would also like to thank all the people who have turned out today for this lecture. It's always a pleasure to come and exchange. It's more about a dialogue and a conversation than really a lecture. One of the thing I want to say before I even begin is just to thank Sonoma State University, because it has a very special place in our history as Rwandans living in North America. The Alliance at Sonoma has become a rallying ground for a devoted community of organizers, educators in our protracted fight against genocide and genocide ideology. As I look back today, as a person, most of us were able to lead productive lives, mostly due to your relentless support, solidarity, and friendship. So we never stood alone even after the horrible genocide that took our families, because how you moved in and became you became the brother's keeper. This evening, as Stephen just said, I'm co-presenting with a fantastic woman, Geraldine Umutesi, the Deputy Director General for Imbuto Foundation. For those, she'll probably talk about maybe what even the organization has done, but Imbuto Foundation is a premier organization that has changed people's lives in Rwanda. Dear participants, we will try to make our presentation relatively short to allow you to ask any questions or offer any insights you might have. I'll give general remarks on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi as they relate to the theme of this year commemoration, that is Remember, Unite, Renew. That has actually been the theme for all the years, for several years, because it's a good theme. It reflects what Rwanda stands for. So, and then Geraldine is going to give you a glimpse on the plight of survivors, but also on their resilience, because really that's what it's all about. Ladies and gentlemen, students, faculty, for 100 days that have studied on April 7th, Rwandans and their friends will be commemorating the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The commemoration is an opportunity to mourn and honor the victims, offer support to survivors, and bring Rwandans together as they collectively face the painful past and confront the future with renewed confidence and unity. This should be really a cautionary tale for all of us to draw lessons from what happened in one of history's darkest chapters, and to strengthen our resolve of not being bystanders to genocide. Especially, I'm thinking in terms of you who are taking a class on genocide, because there are not many institutions in the United States that are teaching the course. So again, let me take this opportunity to thank Sonoma for what they have done to continue teaching. I have to say that it's understandable that people focus on 100 days beginning April 7th, 1994, given the unparalleled magnitude both in scope and cruelty. However, 1994 was not a beginning, but a culmination of decades of discrimination, oppression, and violence directed against one group of Rwandans known as Tutsi. It wasn't, and some would have you believe, a sudden or unpredictable eruption of mob violence. For decades preceding the tragedy of 1994, Rwanda political leaders implemented a policy of demonization and dehumanization aimed at the Tutsi population, and this laid the groundwork for a full-blown genocide. The anti-Tutsi propaganda permeated all the major institutions of the country, and the privileges of citizenship and the protection of the states were stripped from them decades before the genocide of 1994. What happened is that they became the other in their own nation and were stripped progressively of their humanity. And killing Tutsis became an act of patriotism. From verification and dehumanization, it's a short trip and logical step to eradication. Numerous outbreaks of ethnic violence and mass killings in 1959, 1963, 1968, 1973, and as late as 1992 laid the groundwork to genocide and drove hundreds of thousands of survivors into exile in neighboring countries and beyond. So the specter of genocide hung over Rwanda for many years before April 7th. Many of us were driven out of our homeland prior to 1994. Probably the main reasons some of us are still alive to tell the story. Geraldine was in Rwanda. She'll tell her story. 1994 was supposed to be a final solution. So when we talk about remembrance and remember, how can we forget that between April 7th and July 4th, 1994, more than 1 million Rwandans were slaughtered, 19% of them of Tutsi origin, exceeding in just 100 days the number of total battlefield deaths recorded over 4 years of the American Civil War. That fewer than 150,000 Tutsis living in Rwanda during the genocide escaped alive. That as many as 500,000 women were raped. Many left to bring the children of their tormentors into the world, many more infected with HIV. How can we forget that the United Nations ignored repeated and detailed warnings about the coming genocide and left Rwandans to their fate? More importantly, how can we forget when the past is still part of our present? As the genocide came to an end, a UN-approved humanitarian campaign provided safe passage into neighboring countries, especially DRC, for up to 2 million people. Many among them government officials and army officers, taking thousands of ex-soldiers and militias who had planned and executed the genocide. And that hidden in the chaos of refugee camps, these groups came together to again attack Rwanda, setting that stage for the instability and violence that has afflicted the region ever since. So how can we forget when the genocide ideology and hatred of the past has found a breeding ground in that region, perpetrated by the same forces who devastated our nation? The signs are unmistakable, and today we hear hate speeches that echo the rhetoric we have heard prior to and during the genocide against the Tutsi. So, friends, it's only by remembrance that we draw powerful inspiration to build a society too strong and too full of hope to permit the reemergence of hatred and violence that all but destroyed us 31 years ago. So ours is a country undeniably shaped by the unspeakable tragedy, but also not beholden to it. Our collective memory has allowed us to look within and to strengthen our commitment to live together. It has made remembrance an action and imperative for peace unity, and development. We refuse to surrender to despair or adopt the crouch of victimhood. We knew it was our task and ours alone to rebuild from the ruins. So in 31 years, the Rwandan people have forged a path away from despair and hopelessness towards a future brimming with possibilities. So, and for that, we embraced something that I'm going to leave you with, three guiding principles. And that helped the cause of our nation. The first was staying together, no matter what. The second was being accountable to each and to everyone. I mean, each one to be accountable to all. And the third is to think big and to build a better nation. Thanks to these principles, we found within ourselves the resilience and the courage to reject the politics of division and hate. We chose a path that emphasized our common identity as Rwandans and embarked on the long and difficult process of reconciliation. We rebuilt our institutions from the ground up, implementing community-based justice. And I'm not going to say much about justice because I know that our ambassador to UK presented on the Gacaca courts, I think last week, and which had more than 2 million cases and initiated a range of homegrown solutions to address the socioeconomic challenges at the grassroots. Reforms like this made it possible for 3.5 million refugees to come back home. Reforms like this allowed more than 1 million Rwandans to lift themselves out of poverty. Reforms helped us to establish a near universal health care system and have transformed the quality of life of all Rwandans. These milestones are not just statistics. We are not saying it to impress. Rather, they are a tangible outcome of hard work that the Rwandan society has embarked on and a unified sense of purpose among Rwanda's leadership and the citizens of Rwanda. But before I finish, I would like to mention that genocide is a crime that doesn't expire. Time doesn't alleviate its toll on survivors or the nation as a whole. That's just one of the many reasons we must actively combat genocide ideology and denial with unflinching determination. We must reject attempts to ignore, to deny, to distort, and to stand up for the truth. The fight against genocide cannot be won without a collective engagement. And this is why I'm extremely happy that we are here at this university to be together, because collective engagements keep alive a collective memory. Genocide happened and is a part of us, and we cannot erase it or ignore it. But we have transformed our wounded memory into a fertile ground from which we draw strength and lessons. Today, Rwanda is a new nation nurtured by the hard work of our leadership and the resilience of our people. So the collective memory has allowed us to look within and to strengthen our commitment to live together. It has made remembering an action and an imperative for peace, unity, and development. Dear friends, never again should not be a slogan. Our own humanity is tied to how much we recognize our neighbor's right to life. So it's by keeping the memories of the victims that we renew our commitment as humans and as global citizens. So let's not allow such horrors to happen. I look forward to discussing with you after Geraldine has spoken. But thank you again for giving me this opportunity to share with you, but more importantly, to have a dialogue on this very important subject. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Stephen. Thank you, Ambassador Mathilde. I think you really set a tone for this conversation. And dear participant, all protocol observed. I'm happy to be here for this discussion. So mine will be a kind of a personal testimony, but also a testimony from the community to help you understanding in terms of humanity, in terms of a community, in terms of a nation, in terms of global perspective, what Ambassador Mathilde talked about. So 7th April in 1994, I was very excited to turn 17 because my birthday is on 7th April, unfortunately or fortunately. So I was so excited as a young person to transition from a childhood to adulthood. You know, even though in Rwanda we don't really say that when you are 18 you are an adult, fully adult, but you feel that you are moving from that childhood. However, on this very day, my childhood abruptly ended because the pre-final phase of the genocide against the Tutsis began and lasting 100 days, resulting in the death of over 1 million people, including my family. I think Ambassador Mathilde talked about the fact that genocide is not like a disease, it is prepared. So as they told you, my name is Geraldine, I'm here. I survived that genocide. I'm a wife, I'm a mother of 2. And I stand here today as one of the many women whose leadership has restored our hopes and given us the opportunity to serve our nation, Rwanda. As Ambassador Mathilde said, I'm currently serving the local organization called Imbuto Foundation. And this is an initiative of Her Excellency, the First Lady of Rwanda. And the foundation is investing in education, health, and youth empowerment. It started to restore hope and resilience in Rwandans. I was born and raised in Eastern Rwanda, where my parents were forced to relocate to be killed by different diseases because of just being Tutsis in the late 1950s. That was the early preparation of the genocide, as my previous speaker shared. Born from orphans of this first trial of the genocide, I couldn't really relate when our parents narrated what happened in 1960s till it happened to me and I witnessed a cruel genocide against Tutsis in 1994. Surprisingly, I survived with my young sister, and I'm here today. I think I survived to tell you my story, to remember and honor those we lost during the genocide, and also to pay tribute to the brave souls who risked their lives by saving us. I also survived to share the resilience of my nation, Rwanda, and the profound meaning of never again regarding the genocide. So thank you so much, Sonoma State University family, for this opportunity today. My journey is not only mine, but every survivor has a story. Every Rwandan has a story of resilience, unity, reconciliation, and transformation. So allow me to take you through my journey using at least 7 steps, which helps me to recover and move forward after the genocide. I may call one step may invite you to understand the cruelty of genocide. When you imagine how the genocide happened in Rwanda, in a country where we have one language, almost one religion, speaking one language, and we have over 1 million killed in 100 days, you tend to have a psychological denial of what happened. You refuse to accept the loss, the brutal death, the humiliation, and dehumanization you've experienced. I struggled with this step, but they allow me to share a few moments that I'm not able to really overcome, even though I say that I'm now resilient. On 9th April, our killers found our hiding place and sent us to the mass killing site. So on our way, they took my mother and my elder sister, and I left with my young sister behind, waiting for our fate. At the end of the day, my mom and my sister returned to where we were, but the horror and the disappointment of their faces told me everything. So they were not killed, but they have been raped. My mother tried to really comfort my sister, but she was really, she couldn't really afford that. This is when I fully understand that the gravity of the situation we are in is not going to end like tomorrow. So rape has been used as a tool. Excuse me. So it has been used as a tool to exterminate the Tutsis in Rwanda, humiliating them before they died. Another moment I really never forget is what happened on 20th April around 3 p.m. in Rwanda. So when the killers came to force us to the roads where they're going to kill us with machetes, they took us very far from where we were, and it was really a path to our last moment. Surrounded by the soldiers, militia, and citizens, we were really dehumanized. They started to kill everyone. My mother and young sister fled in one direction. Myself and my elder sister, Yvonne, tried to escape another way, but we couldn't evade the killers. So when they started to kill people with machetes, my elder sister, Yvonne, I don't know how courage she was, but she really pushed me down so she can protect me with her body, sacrificing herself so I could live. But she didn't survive from the machetes of our killers. Excuse me. Sometimes it's not easy for survivors to talk about the story of what happened to us, but there's a step that is really helping everyone to overcome what happened. Amidst the genocide, it's not easy to find a rescuer voice that is telling you that you're going to be saved. We couldn't find anyone. None of the international efforts, including the UN, everyone left us in the hands of the killers. We were only saved by the young Rwandan Patriotic Army in Inkotanyi and today the Rwandan Defense Force. Without them, none of us would have survived. And we really value what they did. So they told us that revenge is not a solution to heal the nation like ours, because this was a genocide of proximity. You could not know who are you going to revenge to and who are you going to leave as innocent. And we completely understood as genocide survivors, like many others. So we continue, and as Ambassador Mathilde shared, we choose to be united, we choose to be accountable, think big, and become a nation that is going towards transformation. The third step that helps me to be really towards the road of resilience is the mourning. You have to mourn because when you're not mourning your loss, it's not easy. Now I can understand how my parents really were not able to recover from what they lived in, because the leadership of that period was not allowing them to mourn their loss. Our leadership acknowledged that we have to really they have to allow us to mourn individually, as a community, and as a nation to heal our wounds. But being a survivor, it's not easy to stand up in the morning and start working like others. You need a peer and mutual support, which is the fourth step I would like to share with you. My sister saved me, so it's hard to forget her hot blood flowing on my back. But for her memory and bravery, I chose to live and be resilient. It was not easy being a young lady surviving genocide. And after the genocide, everything was really a priority. So the government has to choose what are going to be the most priority. And apart from Gachacha, education was also one of the first priorities. So the government told us to go back to school. But how you go back to school without having family, without having support, without having a counselor, without having psychological support? How do you really go in a class in an institution like yours and you start studying? It was really hard. People started to drop out from the school, and we decided to create associations of student genocide survivors. And today, Ibuka, which is an association of genocide survivors. In that association, we created a concept of family to help restoring hope and building resilience among the genocide survivors, especially the younger ones. So we tried to reimagine the essence of family, where we grouped ourselves into 10 to 15 members, and this became your family. You nominate a father, a mother, and the rest are becoming siblings. This approach became really a tool, but more than a tool, it becomes really your family. And this family becomes yours like any other biological family could be. We raised ourselves, we grow, and now we are serving our nation. But as you know, it's not easy when the genocide stopped. You have to fight the genocide. This is the most challenging and ongoing steps. It requires brave individuals to stand on the front line, just like in any other war. Platforms like this one like this university, this family is really very important, and investing in young people to understand and prevent genocide are vital. Genocide survivors play a big role, and thank you for giving me this opportunity today to share what we did. Another step is really the contribution to the national unity, reconciliation, resilience, and transformation. As Ambassador Mathilde shared, Rwanda is no longer defined by its past. We are ensuring inclusivity and human rights for all is key to our nation, unity, and transformation journey. Genocide survivors are among the cornerstone of this process of healing and rebuilding a nation. It's not easy to live close to your perpetrator as a neighbor, but we choose to be united, and we choose to continue building a nation where my kids, the next generations, are not going to suffer from that. But you need to make the never again really meaningful. And the best word Rwanda choose is the word transformation. The never again is a journey, but it has to be practical. It has to be tangible. Our journey toward national transformation is the only way and the only sustainable solution to heal our nation and ensure such atrocities never happen again. Even though in our neighboring countries it's happening, but Rwanda's stand is always about the prevention, about raising awareness of what is happening around us, because genocide really hurts. As I conclude, I thank you for your attention. And as a genocide survivor, I understand the pain of genocide more than anyone else. So I urge you to join me in fighting genocide ideology. And there is no way to rethink, to reimagine, to reassess what happened. It's the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. So let's really be together to fight this genocide denial. And last but not least, allow me to again really thank you as an entire Sonoma State University family especially for this platform. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Geraldine. That was very powerful. So we have time now for questions from the audience, and the tradition is the right to first question belongs to a student in the class. Yeah, Melissa. So stand up and speak loud, and everyone should be able to hear you.
Hello, my name is Melissa Shulkoff. Last week, we had His Excellency Johnson Buzingai here, and he mentioned that now Rwanda doesn't divide Tutsis and Hutus. I was wondering what your opinion was on that. Do people still identify themselves as Tutsi or Hutus, or just Rwandans?
Say briefly, and Geraldine can tell you because she has been living that reality. But Melissa, it's one of the choices we made because all these things, the ethnicity that became almost like racialized was one of the main reasons to lead us to genocide. So the people were divided across ethnic lines, and those were structures that were built during the colonial era, when they were trying to divide the people during that particular moment to know who was who, and then they put categories that were almost reminiscent of racial categorization. So the roots were planted, and it ended by being a Hutu and Tutsi. We had to carry cards, but also the whole discrimination and so on that they put in quotas. A Tutsi couldn't do this, a Tutsi couldn't do that. It led to the point that when you had your ID with a Tutsi on it, it was a sure way to death. As a matter of fact, on the road blocks, that was what was used by looking at the identity cards, because most people in Rwanda, they look alike. There was no other distinguishing thing. But also because people had embraced it so fully that it had becoming a divisive issue. So what we did, and this is not to take away any kind of diversity, but what we wanted to do was that first and foremost, Rwandans have to see themselves as Rwandans. So the concept of Ndu Munyarwanda, I'm Rwandan, became almost like a rallying cry for us to come together as people. It was one of the stages for our unity, the unity that we mentioned. So now if you are in Rwanda or any other place, or new generations of Rwandans, they see themselves in the lenses of that Rwandan, being a Rwandan, and not to seeing themselves as a Tutsi and Hutu and Twa. And let me tell you, no one is prevented for doing that, but the prospects in your country, what you can achieve in your country, what you can dream for in your country, is based on you understanding yourself as a part of that Rwandan community. So we are Rwandans. So that's pretty much why we embraced fully who we were. That brought us together, not the ones that were dividing us to the point of one group killing another group because of who they were.
Thank you so much for the question and the response from Ambassador Mathilde. I would add that, genocide could not happen if the leadership doesn't allow. So the current leadership we have initiated the fact that we have to be Rwandans. So as Ambassador Mathilde said, the Tutsi, Hutus, this categorization is a legacy of colonialists. And as Rwandans, we choose to continue being one nation. And in schools, for example, I have to give you an example that before you couldn't attend public school because you are Tutsis. Today, we have education for all. You have to be, you have to really attend the school without being requested if you are from this group or the other group. So all Rwandans are receiving education, receiving health services. So there's no discrimination because you're coming from this background and so forth. And it's not easy, as Ambassador Mathilde said, to identify yourself as Hutu or Tutsis, because it's really not clear how the colonialists tend to really divide ourselves because we look alike. And we are a small country, we have a same language, we speak the same language, and almost over 90% are from the same regions, from the same economic background. So it's really what Rwanda is doing now is to move as a nation, so there's no longer the division.
Hi, my name is Ella. You mentioned about how you guys also focus on education of youth as well as the general population as a way of moving forward and healing. I was wondering if you could go into detail on how you balance both remembering with healing.
Thank you so much, Era. I will try, and Ambassador Mathilde will also help us. So in Rwanda, we have the education system that is allowing also studying this history, understanding all the perspectives around what happened, but also understanding what are the approaches Rwanda had chosen to develop this country, so that children can be taught about these approaches, For example, understanding the justice approaches we elaborated, like what Gachacha, like what Ambassador Mathilde was talking about. So in education system, we are also including that in our curriculum. But we are also, every year, we are also organizing 100 days of commemoration, which is really an opportunity for the young people to understand what happened. And we have also a week of commemoration, which is at national level, it is observed. So healing, while you are also educating, I think there are two approaches that have to go together. For example, you can't educate young people about what happened without helping them to overcome the transgenerational trauma that is happening. Because in genocide, when you have a genocide, you inherit the transgeneration trauma. Yeah, sometimes there are also some group or some members who inherit the transgeneration genocide denial, but you also inherit the transgeneration resilience, because we have resilience of our parents who survived from 1950s. We have the resilience, we are learning from the resilience of the rescuers, but we are also inheriting the resilience of the leadership we have today, so that we build generations that are aware of what happened, but they are also aware of how they can heal themselves. Over to you, Mathilde.
No, I think you've said it very well. One of the thing that I needed to underscore, there are people who sometimes ask questions, why do you keep rehashing genocide and the commemoration and so on and so forth? One of the thing we needed to understand, even from a human perspective, what I call that the past is still present. I can tell you, for instance, there are women, young women like Geraldine, even in our midst, in our communities where we live in United States, who, when they go to get married or they are having babies, you find that sadness, the sadness that they don't see their mother. Usually when you are going to have your first child, the first happiness is to have your mother to enjoy what you are going to get. I could see the children, when you go to a sporting event, they see other kids with grandparents, cousins coming to see their game, but you don't see anybody. You just see maybe one person or two. So commemoration, aside from what Geraldine has said, and she said it very well, is also bringing a certain family across. People became families. That's why when I became, and I was not doing it, saying it was substantive. It was when I was saying that Sonoma moved in, I remember even for ourselves, we were not in Rwanda when it happened. But having communities like Sonoma or Sac State that were able to help us in the journey, organize, doing things, they became the family. It's like a surrogate family. So commemoration, I can say it's deeply wrenching, especially for survivors. But also it helps because you are with other people. There's nothing wrong, even when you lose somebody in normal circumstances, when they die and there's nobody who comes to say hello. Now you can imagine if you lose an entire family or you lose an entire community, society, then you can imagine what it means. Every April when it comes, when the rain starts, you remember all those things. Imagine if you were to remember by yourselves. So this is also the important part of commemoration. I have to say that throughout the United States, they've been commemorating in major cities. There was one at UC Berkeley. There was one in everywhere in the United States. And that has been extremely helpful, especially for the people who live here who have lost their loved ones. but who still find that human connection, another family. So that's very important to understand that it goes beyond any kind of academic even discussion. It's really, it's still on a human level.
So I'm going to read a question that is in the Q&A, and you can both see it as well. So, good morning. My name is Dan Bushmeyer. I'm an undergrad at San Francisco State University in International Relations, studying the early warning prevention gap in ethnic conflict. In your opinion, why is it that the unequivocal warning signs of genocide given to the international community failed to produce preventative action in Rwanda, yet political will was motivated in Macedonia from early warning signs? Maybe in the Kosovo there, I think, instead of Macedonia. Yeah.
I'm going to give it, a try.
Okay.
That there are many reasons that the international community didn't care. It didn't end then, it seems there are a number of reasons. Part of it is that sometimes, there's a president, I'm not going to mention the name, I'm not here for political problems, and he's not from here, but who said, a genocide over there is not important. It's not even a genocide. Even refusing to define it as a genocide, when the signs are there, tells you much. But so there's one layer that many things coming out of Africa are never taken as seriously. They are defined as something else. It's a tribal warfare. It's however you want to define it, but it's never named, even when it's clear. And you've seen from Rwanda, even if I say President Clinton apologized quite a few times, he was the president during that time, and people were saying, how many cases of genocide do you classify it as a genocide? So there was a definite, you can bring all the other factors that, for instance, for the case of the United States, there was Somalia, quite a few had died. The Belgians, who were the peacekeepers, a few died, but then they left thousands and thousands of Rwandans to die while they have the capacity to save them. So there's that kind of understanding. And when you see also what happens again in Africa, in many different places, and the definition people assign to certain things happening, that's also that, whether it's by knowledge or because Africa is considered as a continent, not like other continents in that kind of definition. But also there are other things. Usually genocide, if I might say, for the case of Rwanda, because I'm going to stay maybe with Rwanda, it was well known. It was not even a matter of science. The telegrams were sent, UN was there, the Security Council knew. So it was not a matter of not knowing. And this is it's one of the shameful past I think I would put on what we call the international community. And this is why, even as we discuss, we still ask that the same UN, what do they do, for instance, when the rise of terrorism and other things go up, what are they doing? So what I'm saying, I think that I trust more you, I trust the institutions, I trust somebody who can say, in my right or in my capacity, I'm going to help in what I can do on individual basis. But when you talk about international community, really, you have to be able to define it. Who is the international community, really? Who is the international community? We are the international community. And one of the things is, there are people who have the capacity within our community, the so-called international community, who can stop things. But there are other considerations, and those are the things that, I don't know, maybe since you are people in international international arena is to tell us what are those other things. But sometimes interest trumps human dignity. It's about interest, it's economic interest, it's many different things, it's geostrategic interest. So there are quite a number of things that I don't think we can really find time to discuss, but in our case and seeing what has happened within the last 31 years, because as I mentioned, actually, when genocide ended in Rwanda, but you don't stop ideologies. Just because you stop a genocide, it is stopped in Rwanda, but genocide ideologies was allowed to prosper in other parts, especially in our region. So those are stuff that give us time to really think and to see how we can stop it before it gets to the point where there's a total annihilation of a population.
Geraldine, do you want to respond to that question?
I think Ambassador said everything, but what I would like maybe to add is that genocide always has planners, and the planners are always, when you have it's a project. When you have a plan, you know how you're going to start, where you're going to start, who are going to be your allies, and genocide in Rwanda has its planners, and they did a campaign to make sure that these early signs are not really taken into consideration. I think second is about what Ambassador Mathilde said, is about the interests. And there are those who have interests who are not able to take any part, and there are others who even don't know where Rwanda is and doesn't matter for them. I need to share that my young brother was killed in 1992. So that by that time, we didn't have the UN troops were here, but they couldn't even support. So it doesn't mean that because the early signs are there, the international community is going to understand, because the planners are there to really make sure their plans are going to be done.
So I would like to ask a question, and I think the question is probably directed mostly to Geraldine. What was it hard, Geraldine, not to seek revenge? So in the summer and fall of 1994, when the genocide was over, I imagine you would have been consumed with anger at the people who had perpetrated this. And was it hard not to act on that anger?
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Stephen. Definitely, when you have a mixture of feelings. You have fear, first of all, because you don't, immediately after the genocide, we still have, because we have been killed by our neighbors, and some of them were still there. And so there was fear, anger, trauma, but also because you feel that you don't have any support around you. So it was really very hard. I remember when we started the schools, it was really hard because you know each other, you know what happened. But as I said, leadership is very important in this process. When you hear the voice of the leaders, when you hear, and we learned a lesson from the soldiers who rescued us. They had weapons, they had everything, they could even revenge, but they didn't, because the guidance, and we also learned from the soldiers who rescued survivors here, because they had weapons, they had everything, all the materials, but they didn't really revenge because the guidance from the upper leadership was that please, revenge is not going to solve anything. Let's build a nation. And they put even measures for those who tried. So if you are in a war, you're fighting, but you're not able to do revenge as you want. So who am I as a civilian to do so if the army is not doing that? So it was hard, but it was also manageable because of the leadership.
Ambassador, do you want to respond to that?
Do you ask anything, Stephen?
Was it hard for you to set aside anger in 1994?
Me?
Yeah.
So sorry. I think, Geraldine was there. People took it differently. Actually, the people outside who were not in the country were more angry because we couldn't understand how we can let these people go. But the choices made by our country saved our nation. That was the whole vision, because one of the thing, and I think that probably Businje talked about it, if the two choices made when it came to punishment and so on and so forth really saved our country. One was the eradication of death penalty. Because if you are thinking in terms of more than 2 million people implicated in the killings, what nation was going to come out of that if people were going to exactly what people had done? The second was to punish revenge killing. So that allowed the people to go through the justice system. And this is why the second point we raised of accountability is big in this whole thing. Accountability also involves the justice. And justice that we chose in Rwanda, the Gacaca, and you've heard about what they said, was more restorative than punitive. Of course, it punished people, but more importantly, it was really with an eye towards restoring society, bringing people together and looking at chaff and grain and be able to mold the nation. So it meant that people had to go through that exercise. It was just a scene where the victims had the chance to see also justice being rendered, and that also helped in the reconciliation process. So justice was a prerequisite for this. But justice, by exacting your own revenge, was never going to be justice. It was just going to be a cycle of violence. So it was a very tough situation. It was a tough. Myself, if you ask me, because we knew the killers of our parents, I was always afraid of meeting them because I didn't know how I was going to react as a person on a human level. But it was not an easy solution. It was not an easy stance. But when you look at our country, without those choices, we wouldn't be where we are. Probably we would be a failed state. Going through an eventful type of situation and cycle until now.
Are there more? Yes. Yeah, Julia.
Hi, my name's Julia. I have a question regarding pre-colonial practices in Rwanda. So last week we heard a really wonderful lecture on I hope I pronounced this correctly, Gacaca courts. Gacaca courts. And I was just curious, Geraldine in particular, you'd mentioned working on youth empowerment. I'm curious if any other kind of pre-colonial Rwandan traditions have been revived as part of that kind of unification process, but also as a part of allowing Rwandans to kind of heal through their shared traditional culture?
Thank you so much for the question. I wasn't there in pre-colonial time, but I know what we had before. So you have to understand that Rwanda, before the colonial time, Rwanda has a very strong governance system, which has the judicial, the governance, the social, every aspect had really its own structure. And so the colonialists came in Rwanda when Rwanda really has a very clear structure and governance, which is including the early childhood education, if I may call it, where young fathers and young mothers are given education on how to raise their children. And this is one of the traditional approach we are even embracing today when we are investing in early childhood development and education, which the foundation I work with is really investing in, because when you invest in early childhood development, you invest in the entire society growth. So that is one. Second was on the education for young people. They had a school, a traditional school, which is now back, where you are taught about the Rwandan values, about the Rwandan virtues and values. So how do you make sure that you also leave a legacy when you grow? So this is also coming back, and we have a national, it's called Itorero. It's a national education system that we have, which is teaching everyone the national building, the development programs, and also how do you give back to the community. The third one, it was about the how I may probably compare it with the maternal and childhood health, which was there in the pre-colonial time, where mothers' children are taken care of in terms of their health. And today we have the maternal and child. I think Rwanda managed to reduce the maternal death, and child health is really improved. So we are bringing back these pre-colonial concepts we used to have in Rwanda to make sure that we are raising a healthy, educated, and dignified generation.
Julia, if I might add, and she said it very well in our educational system, but also in our socioeconomic development, what we call the homegrown solutions that have helped to develop Rwanda after the genocide are drawn from traditional practices, but at the same time also bring a sense of reconciliation. Like, for instance, I'll give you two examples. So one was Gachacha that you learn, but also there's, like, for instance, what we call Mihigo. Mihigo is like a contract that the leaders have with the citizens to perform. So that used to be among young Rwandans in pre-colonial times, where they could compete, friendly competition to be able to do stuff. So now in our decentralized government, including even ourselves in the embassies, all of us do what we call imihigo. I just finished mine. Imihigo is to present what we are going to be doing for 1 year. That was drawn from the past, and it has helped Rwanda to develop on local, but also on a national perspective. But also, as I said, some of the socioeconomic things were initiated to bring people together in reconciliation. Like, for instance, what they call Girinha, have a cow. Have a cow is an amazing practice where actually someone or the government give a cow to someone who doesn't have anything, but with an eye towards giving it forward. So you give it to your neighbor. So that has created this kind of, solidarity and friendship. Some of you have been to Macy's, you've seen what they call the peace baskets that are made in Rwanda. Also, they were used as an economic leverage, bringing women who are survivors of genocide, but also women who might be the wives of perpetrators of genocide. But once they talk and they see the economic leverage they can draw from each other, they also form some kind of friendships. And that had allowed the society to evolve by using also socioeconomic practices. Those, what we call homegrown solutions, have been institutionalized in Rwanda, including the Gacaca. They are in what we call Rwanda cooperative initiatives. As students, you can actually go and read and see what Rwanda has done. I also have to tell you that sometimes in our dialogue here in Washington, D.C., some countries they call South-South cooperation are going back and looking at what Rwanda has done, especially coming out of conflict, to be able to revive itself and become what it has become. So those are what we call, that were drawn from tradition, but with a dose of modernity. Of course, you are not going exactly to apply them the same way they used to be in tradition. It's also by looking at the level Rwanda is right now. Thank you.
Well, Ambassador and Geraldine, we are out of time here in California. So I just want to say what a powerful and moving experience this is to hear your testimony. Geraldine said during her presentation, I survived to tell you my story. That reminded me of Elie Wiesel's call to survivors of the Holocaust to bear witness to what they experienced. And we're thankful that you have done that with us today. Thank you very much.